Well, folks, this one is really mask off. You know that one meme? Actually, let me just bring it up. You guys know this meme? It's like one of the most recognizable screenshots from Family Guy ever. Like, even people who haven't watched the show surely recognize this. Now, legally speaking, federal law enforcement is not supposed to operate this way. They are not supposed to be like, ah, yes, you are, you're white, you're good. Oh, you're too brown. Let's question you for a minute. We all know they do, but legally they're not supposed to do that. However, the Supreme Court, I shit you not, they just ruled that this is now a legally protected and valid method for federal agents to operate upon. They just ruled that if you are brown enough now, if ICE sees you walking down the street, they can stop and detain you without a warrant or any probable cause for no other reason than that your race would indicate that you may be from somewhere else and that you would need to prove your identity. Thank God I'm light-skinned. Well, you're gonna have to pass the chart. You know, if they decide you look a little too dark, they now have the right to stop you and question you, ask for proof of citizenship because of your race. Let me, Here it is. Apparently, New York Times has the best article on this, but they're paywalled, like a bunch of assholes. So let's read this article. The Supreme Court just let ICE detain Americans based on race. That's right, folks. It's happening. It is just straight up happening. Full on. No denial. This is it. On Monday, the Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to use racial profiling in its militarized immigration raids across Los Angeles, halting an injunction that had barred officers from targeting Latinos based on their ethnicity. The court did not explain the reason for its shadow docket order, which appeared to split 6-3 along ideological lines, Republican and, Democrat. We got 3 Democrats in the Supreme Court to 6 Republicans right now. In dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor warned that the decision was unconscionably irreconcilable with our nation's constitutional guarantees, opening the door to violent persecution of Latinos, including American citizens, by, quote, masked agents with guns. Not just masked agents, but skull-masked agents. Let's not pretend we don't all know what that is. The majority did not respond to this extraordinary charge, perhaps because it is so obviously true. Now, if you're interested in this story and you like my coverage, consider leaving a like and a comment down below. The AI overlords that YouTube has now replaced the algorithm with are real stingy and very strict, so leaving a like and a comment helps to convince them that I deserve to eat and have a place to live this month. Thank you all so much for your support. Like and comment, totally free, really does help, and don't forget to subscribe. But with that said, let's get back into it. Monday's case, Noam v. Vasquez Perdomo, revolves around the Trump administration's sweeping immigration dragnet in and around LA, dubbed Operation at Large. The government deployed immigration and customs enforcement officers to arrest anyone suspected of lacking legal status. Many of those officers wore masks, skull masks, refused to identify themselves as law enforcement, and carried handguns or assault weapons. It's AR, man. Just say AR. They targeted locations where Latinos frequently congregated, including Home Depots, car washes, bus stops, churches, and parks. And they targeted individuals who appeared Latino and spoke Spanish, arresting them first, then determining their citizenship status later. The arrests were often gratuitously brutal, with agents throwing targets against the ground or a wall for no reason. As a result, a number of American citizens found themselves physically assaulted and held at gunpoint until they could produce legal documentation. Well, folks, America is officially papers, please. I am so glad I've got my passport ID card on me at all times, because if I'm going to think about going to the beach next summer or just spending any time outside, my ass is going to get a little tan. And if one of those ICE fuckers stops me, I better have my passport card on me, be able to prove I'm an American citizen. Because remember, an ID won't do it. You can get an ID even if you're not, even if you're an immigrant. You gotta be able to provide, legit like, citizenship proving documents. You have black hair? It's true, I have black hair. They might spot that and just be like, oh shit. After victims of these tactics sued, a federal district court ruled that Operation at Large egregiously violated the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment permits law enforcement to search or seize individuals only upon reasonable suspicion that they have committed a crime. In LA, however, ICE agents were seizing people because of their ethnicity, language, physical location, and evident occupation, none of which alone or combined gives rise to a reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. The court therefore barred the government from arresting anyone based on 4 factors, in combination or alone: appearing Hispanic, speaking Spanish or accented English, working a particular type of job, and being present at a place where immigrants are, quote, known to gather. An appeals court upheld the injunction, prompting Donald Trump's Solicitor General, John Saar, to ask SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, for emergency relief. That's right, folks. If your skin happens to get a little darker when you tan, maybe spend some time inside in the coming months and let yourself get a bit pale, because, you just want to avoid the... You want your white camo index to be at 100%. Think like the Metal Gear Solid 3 camo index, except it's like how white you pass for. You basically want to be at like at least an 85% white camo index if you can pull it off. And then ICE won't see you. Now the court has given the administration what it wanted, without bothering to justify its intervention in this ongoing case. That is par for the course under Trump's second presidency. Over and over again, the conservative supermajority has frozen orders against the government without offering a word of explanation, forcing lower courts to guess why it stepped in. Some Republican-appointed justices have also begun to harshly criticize judges who failed to divine the true meaning of their unreasoned decisions. This silence is especially galling given the pernicious consequences of the Supreme Court of the United States' edict, which Sotomayor laid out in scathing dissent, joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Quote, "We should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job," Sotomayor wrote, "and yet, thanks to the Supreme Court, we now do." Sotomayor's dissent contains an undercurrent of sorrow that feels unusually personal for court's first and only Latina justice. She writes in this registrar, when reminding her colleagues of the racial injustices they cannot or will not see, but that she never has the luxury to ignore. The freedom, quote, "from arbitrary interference by law officers," she wrote, "is a constitutional guarantee. Yet under Trump, it may no longer exist. Quote, "For those who happen to look a certain way, speak a certain way, and appear to work a certain type of legitimate job that pays very little," Sotomayor vividly describes the indignities suffered by Latinos who, quote, "have been grabbed, thrown to the ground, and handcuffed simply because of their looks, their accents, and the fact they make a living doing manual labor." And it's not just immigrants. United States citizens are also being seized, taken from their jobs, and prevented from working to support themselves and their families. Why? For, quote, "doing nothing more than going to work every day," Sotomayor writes. While being a, quote, "Latino speaking Spanish," quote unquote, the current administration has all but declared that all Latinos, U.S. citizens or not, who work low-wage jobs are fair game to be seized at any time, taken away from work, and held until they provide proof of their legal status to the agent's satisfaction. This policy, she explains, tramples the constitutional requirement that officers must have a particularized and objective basis for suspecting the particular person stopped of criminal activity. Basically, you need to have probable cause, of which someone being brown is not probable cause. The court had previously held that Mexican ancestry alone cannot justify a law enforcement stop, even near the southern border, nor can presence in a neighborhood known for illicit drugs. That's because the Fourth Amendment forbids officers from detaining people based on facts that also, quote, "describe a very large category of presumably innocent individuals." Millions of Spanish-speaking Latinos in Central California who work low-wage jobs are lawfully present. So the Constitution supposedly does not allow Operation at Large to launch roving immigration raids built on racist stereotypes. the Supreme Court has decided otherwise. Ah, fucking hell, this shit is evil. In a brief concurrence, Justice Brett Kavanaugh offers a fictional retelling of facts to downplay the disastrous impact of the court's order. Kavanaugh claims that ICE agents are merely conducting, quote, brief investigative stops to, quote, check the immigration status of those whose occupations are attractive to illegal immigrants, he asserts. If the officers learn that an individual they stopped is a U.S. citizen or otherwise lawfully in the United States, they promptly let the individual go. And he declared that, under the Constitution, ethnicity may be a relevant factor for determining who is unlawfully present in the United States. Here, Kavanaugh seems to be responding to widespread criticism of the Supreme Court's unexplained shadow docket rulings by defending his vote. The problem, of course, is that he misrepresents reality to do so. No matter what the justice would like to believe, Sotomayor writes, the truth is that ICE is not conducting brief stops for questioning. Its agents are seizing people using firearms, physical violence, we've seen that, and warehouse detentions. Moreover, Kavanaugh's position would effectively compel all Latinos to carry enough documentation to prove that they deserve to walk freely, at risk of indefinite detention. That's right, the fear of just needing to have this stuff on you at all times just in case is absolutely unconstitutional. That is not the land of the free that I grew up in. The Constitution, Sotomayor writes, does not permit the creation of such a second-class citizenship status. Monday's decision is a tragic outcome for many Californians who may now be terrorized by armed and masked agents solely because of their job, language, or physical appearance. But its devastating implications reach far beyond the state. Because the court refused to explain its reasoning, lower courts have no clue why exactly the majority found this injunction unacceptable. Some will assume that any similar restriction is now off the table, and avoid protecting the constitutional rights of Latinos for fear of being reprimanded by the Supreme Court, should they dare defend the Fourth Amendment. Others may push back, refusing to abandon constitutional protections without clear instructions from the Supreme Court. Federal judges in Illinois, for instance, could find creative ways to rein in Trump's imminent crackdown on Chicago. They will do so, though, at risk of being maligned by Republican-appointed justices, who are themselves echoing unrelenting attacks on the judiciary by the White House. In the meantime, ICE raids will expand across the country with the implicit blessing of the Supreme Court. They will ensnare countless more citizens and lawful residents, as well as migrants, recently stripped of legal status by Trump. And the line between a lawful arrest and an illegal kidnapping will continue to blur as unidentified ICE officers abduct people off the streets without a semblance of due process. Sotomayor is right. The Supreme Court's conservative supermajority has enshrined second-class citizenship status for Latinos while cowering behind the silence of the shadow docket. Damn! What a good article that was, huh? And, yeah, basically, like I said at the start of this whole segment, Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices, he appointed for the most part. That's why we got that, 4-6? Or 4-3? No, I think it's, no, 6-2. Conservative-dominated Supreme Court is, or 6-3, is because, I am so tired right now, is because Trump appointed several of them. And not only that, mind you, I've mentioned this before, but keep this in mind. Donald Trump plans to have several of the conservative Supreme Court justices that are currently sitting on the Supreme Court right now step down from their lifelong position, voluntarily step down during this term, so Trump can replace them with... His plan is to put Supreme Court justices that are in their 40s and late 30s in there. The goal, as stated by Trump, is to secure the Supreme Court for the next 50 years. An absolutely terrifying prospect. Time to move to Canada. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, but at this point, who does and doesn't get appointed into what seat in the Supreme Court is so far out of our control, all we can do is watch and hope for the best. Anyway, folks, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it entertaining, educational, or enjoyable in any way whatsoever, then please consider leaving a like and a comment down below. Really does help to boost the channel and the algorithm and prove to the AI overlords that run YouTube now that I deserve to eat and have a house to live in. I really appreciate you guys who help to boost the channel to satisfy the algorithm demons. And of course, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications if you haven't already and want to see more from me in the future. Follow my social medias linked down below if you want to see or join my fan Discord, which is the main hub of my fan base and community. I host gaming events, call-in streams, watch parties, and movie nights there every Friday, every week, so if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you hop on in there. It's a real good time. And of course, if you want to support me directly, financially, help me keep the lights on and a roof above my head here at the Xander Hall studio, then please consider donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buy some custom Xander Hall merch through the Streamlabs link down below. Regardless of how you support me though, thank you all so much for watching as always, and have a good one.